Hello Internet, Junior here from the LiftedCommerce team, and welcome back to this Shopify Hydrogen SEO tutorial series. In the previous video, we saw how to add the breadcrumbs to our Shopify Hydrogen demo store, and as you can see, we have breadcrumbs added both to the products page, to the collection, individual collection page, and to the collections page as well. But one thing, first of all, in and of themselves, the breadcrumbs are excellent to improve our internal linking structure and make the link juice or the SEO juice flows perfectly between the pages. So, but in and of themselves, they are not enough. At least we are not optimizing, we are not using everything at our disposal to squeeze as much as possible of our on-site SEO. And the reason is, if you read this documentation page, which I will link in the description, it's very clear that Google tend to favor sites that have the schema markups, especially the breadcrumb schema markups. And the reason is it improves Google's understanding of your website. But the second reason why it's a good idea to add that is that if you look at this search results here, you can see I searched for men's shoes, and you can see that every single website that ranks here has, or pretty much almost all of them, have the schema. You can see the breadcrumb in the search result, and that is great in terms of improving potentially your click-through rate, because you can see here the user can clearly see the structure of the page and so on, and that is known to potentially increase your click-through rate, because you can see clearly here that the breadcrumb is shown in the SERP. So let's, without further ado, see how to add that. I've already added it here in this demo. You can already see if I go to the collections page for the women's collection, and I go to schema, you can see that we have the breadcrumb added. Okay, so that the goal of this video will be to see how to add this here. Okay, not only for the collection individual ones, but for the collections page. Okay, if I come here, you can see we have the breadcrumbs here, list item, and obviously for the products as well. And for the specific case of products, we already had a breadcrumb for the product itself. Okay, because that's a schema markup that Google recognizes. If I come back here, where is that? Okay, you can see that this is the product. It's one of the schema markup. Where is it? Somewhere here. Let me search product. Exactly here, you can see. So Google recognizes that, and in addition, Google also recognizes the breadcrumb. So are we going to give priority to the breadcrumb or the product? Well, the answer is you can add both. Okay, Google allows you can interpret a schema markup that has multiple types of data in it. You can see here we have one here with the recipe and the breadcrumbs. Okay, and that is if you want to add both individually, but you can also nest things. But in our case, the nesting is not necessary because there are two separate entities. In this case, for example, the recipe and the video that explains that recipe. As you can see here, the video is nested within the recipe, but in our case, like in this case as well, the breadcrumbs is not necessarily doesn't need to be nested within the product. So that's what we're going to do. Okay, and so without further ado, let's jump to VS Code. And I already have the code implemented, but I'm going to check out to the previous commit where I don't have those functionalities, so we can do them together. Okay, all right. So in the previous video, if you remember, I think I may have to do some refreshing here because some of these code may not. Let me see here if I have that or not. Let me see the previous commit. Let me do a git log here and see where I am. Breadcrumbs. Okay, I should check out this instead. Okay, so git checkout this one instead. Okay, this will remove this file. Okay, so let's start where we left last time. We added this breadcrumbs component. Okay, and if I open our collections route, okay, the collection individual ones, and then the products. All right, this is where we added this is the component, custom component that we added to handle the breadcrumbs. So let's come here first to this collections index. Okay, we want to export the schema markup from here. All right, so what we can do is simply export the meta as we know already how to do. So let's do that. We already have metas, descriptions in other places like here. So I'm just going to copy what we have there for the sake of time and to go fast. I'm just going to copy this and trim out the parts that we don't need. Okay, so let me come here and do that very quickly like this, meta. Okay, and I'm going to import this function oxygen. Excellent. And I'm going to remove everything else except the schema markup. Okay, and in this case I just want to copy, just for illustration purposes, quickly show you that it works. Let's add what is in here as says. Okay, just for demo. Okay, we can obviously add the real data soon, but just for illustration purposes, let's hard code the values here. Okay, and let's see what we have already. If I go to the collections page, individual collections, and I come here, you see the schema markup is exactly what we just copied. So obviously we don't want to hard code the value. These values need to come from the storefront API, right? We need to obviously here we know that this is we need to return the breadcrumb, and in order to do that we need to return, especially if we are in the, let's say if I go back in the if I enter in this one, okay, I can grab this thing, this whole thing here like this, okay, up to here. Okay, so I can add this everywhere pretty much, okay, where we don't have a meta yet here as well. Okay, and if I do this, oh, one sec, it seems like I have a bug here. Okay, let's do like this. I need to copy it like this. Excellent. Great. Put it here like this. If I go to the individual collections as well, I have the schema markup added to that as well. Okay, but obviously this is still dummy data. We're going to fill that in with actual data soon. Okay, so if I come now to the breadcrumbs component that we added earlier, we see that the logic to create the breadcrumbs is hard coded here. Okay, so this is the logic. This is the presentation of the breadcrumbs, but the logic to create the breadcrumbs is hard coded in this component itself. And the result of that logic is also needed in here, basically in the meta. So what we will need to do, obviously, because as you can see, what we'll need to return is a list of the links that you're actually generating here, right? Everything that you're pushing in the collection. So all these pages that you're adding here in this logic that is embedded within this component will have to get out, because we also need it here. So that means that we need to create a utility script. Okay, so I'm going to create a breadcrumbs utility script here. Breadcrumbs, perfect. And I already have the logic, so for the sake of time I'm just going to copy what is in that file, and we're going to have a look at what it is together. Okay, so very quickly, let me jump, bear with me. All right, copy, exactly, very good. Put it here like that, and let's have a look at what is inside together. So the first thing that we have, obviously, if I split the view, split right, and I hope you can still see, and if I open the breadcrumbs component we had earlier, where is that? The breadcrumbs component, breadcrumbs here. Okay, this is it. You see that most of the logic that was in that component is now in here. Obviously we're going to trim this down and remove the logic from here, but I just want to show you here. So we have added Zord, which we had before, and now we have a breadcrumb schema here, which is going to define like what we are going to export, like the shape of the breadcrumbs. So it's basically a list that contains an object with name and href. So if I hover over this, you can see that is exactly what we were hard coding in the component before. So this is exactly here the same thing. Okay, but now it's more formalized in a Zord schema. Okay, and now we have the two most important things are these two pieces of logic here. So the get breadcrumbs function, okay, and then the get breadcrumbs schema markup. So the get breadcrumbs takes as input a type, right? It can be either collections, it can be collection, it can be product, and returns it returns the breadcrumbs, okay? And those breadcrumbs, once we have them, we can use them to generate the schema markup that we need, as you can see, that we need here, okay? We need that schema markup in this, in the meta, okay? So this logic here is in essence used not only in the component here, but also in the markup, in the meta description. So we have, let's go to that logic very simply. It's exactly what we had before. You have the type, which can be collections, collection product, and then the loader data. It's any, but we are going to use in a subsequent video Zod validation to make sure that we have proper type validation and runtime checks there. And then the base URL, which is basically like your website.com, like the root of your website, okay? Because we need that. Unlike when we were generating it here like this with how's it called? With relative paths, okay? When it comes to generating the breadcrumbs meta tags, we need to add the absolute path, and I think here this is a mistake. I need to add base URL here as well, okay? In this piece of code, we need to add the base URL like this, all right? So once we have that, we are sure that Google, the Ahrefs that are generated and seen by Google are going to be absolute paths, and that's very important for the schema markup to work. Otherwise, with relative paths, it's not going to work. So that's one change compared to what we had before, and that's pretty much the only change, really. Another change that we made is that from the collection, from the product page, okay, instead of returning the collection, instead of getting the collections from the product, okay, the loader of the product page is also returning the collection it belongs to directly. So we don't have to in order to get access to the collection, we don't have to get it from the product. We can directly get it from the return data of the loader. So that's pretty much it in terms of what this function does. So it's pretty simple. We get the type of breadcrumb that we want to generate, and then we just go about generating it. So for collections, we do this. For an individual collection, we do that. We push the collections, and then we push the collections handle, okay? And then for the product, we push the collections, and then we push the collections handle, like the individual collection, and then we push the individual product. And that's pretty much it. That's all we do, okay? Once we have that, we can now, based on those breadcrumbs, generate the schema markup. This also is very simple. As you can see, it meets this format here that you can see. So exactly, but just that we're doing that programmatically here. And obviously you want to start at index 1, because as you can see from the docs here, Google starts at position 1, so we want to do the same. Obviously that's why we have index 1. So that's the first change we want to make. Obviously we want to trim those, we want to remove those things from we want to remove the logic from here now, okay? So this is no longer relevant here, so we're gonna remove that, okay? And now we're gonna import it instead, like this. Very good, okay? And the thing that you're gonna get now is the let me go and look at my notes, one sec. Okay, so we're gonna remove all that, and if I'm gonna remove all this as well, okay? So let me do it very simply like this. So what we're gonna do, if it's valid, if it's not valid, we return null. Breadcrumb that is valid. If it's not valid, let's just return null. Okay, let's just return null, sorry. Return null, and then we try to get the pages, okay? Obviously the pages now, and we are not hard coding the logic here anymore, but we are getting them from the directly from the loader, okay? So we're getting them directly from the loader. So what we're gonna do here is this. You're gonna get breadcrumb schema. Please make the difference between the breadcrumb schema and the breadcrumb schema markup. The breadcrumb schema is the Zod schema, okay? And the breadcrumb schema markup is obviously the schema markup that we need to give to search engine. So we're gonna save pass like we did before, and we're going to do deepest next route, okay, and we're going to get the data and then the breadcrumb, okay, from those data. Okay, so every route basically is going to return not only the breadcrumbs but also the breadcrumb schema markup, right? So we know that every route will need to return both the breadcrumbs, and the breadcrumbs, when it's returned from the loader, okay, is going to be used in the breadcrumbs component, and the breadcrumb schema markup is going to be used in the meta here. Okay, so you see that once everything, all of this comes together, you see where we're headed so far. So like this, we have that. Obviously the pages, this is, let's say pass, let's call this pass because this is still the pass results. And then if we say if pass, if it's not successful, okay, if the parsing is not successful, right, then we return null. Otherwise we return, we get the pages, okay, const pages equal parse dot data, okay, and then TypeScript is going to be very happy now because it's of type that we expect, all right, because we have the schema markup here. So now that we have our logic out of the component, okay, which is great, our logic is now, a bit of logic is now out of the component itself. Let's go and consume these two functions from our respective components so that we can return, from our loaders in our route, so that we can return the breadcrumbs and the breadcrumb schema markup. So let's do that now. Let me collapse this, close this here, and the first thing I'm going to do here is basically I'm going to create const breadcrumb type like this equal type breadcrumbs type, okay, and I'm going to call this collections, all right, and I'm just going to export the breadcrumb type like this, okay. So let's close this. Very simple. I like type safety everywhere. End-to-end type safety is great. I'm a big fan of that. So here we have the data. Obviously we are not consuming that at the moment, we need to. So here in these collections, in the loader, I need to return two things like I discussed before. I need to return the breadcrumbs and the breadcrumb schema markup. So let's do that. I have the code already, so let me quickly copy that for you, and in order to save time. So if we come here, I grab this from here like this, and do this very quickly so I don't waste time. Put it here like this. Where's that? Collections. Okay, so collections. Excellent. This is it. Sorting my notes, one sec. All right, there we go. So I'm going to replace this line with this. Okay, as you can see now, I'm using that logic. You see what changed? Very simple. So I'm just changing this line with this whole thing here, okay, the breadcrumbs and then the breadcrumb schema markup, the two functions that we created, right? So we have the breadcrumbs now and then the breadcrumb schema markup, and instead of just returning the breadcrumbs, the collections, we returned all of this information, the canonical, which we can also use obviously in the meta, and obviously the meta as well will need to change. So let's do that as well. Let's do that here. Very simple, and just copy here what I have in the note and explain. Okay, very simple. And then I import the store name. That's one change improvement I made as well in that commit. It's not totally related, but it's also nice. So we have the title, collection, store name, the description. Obviously you can make this a bit more interesting, and then the canonical, you always want to add that. The viewport, very important for your website because Google is now mobile first, so you need to add this to tell Google that your website is mobile friendly. And then finally the breadcrumbs schema markup that we created with that logic here. So now if we go and visit the collections page, not an individual collection but the collections page, because that's where we have been working so far, you're going to see our changes perfectly. See, collections and so on, list item. So let's do exactly the same for the individual collections page, and the process is very much the same. So I'm just gonna go again in my notes and copy the code so I don't type. We copy that very quickly. So obviously we're gonna replace this with that, okay, and then I'm gonna import the schema markup type here so that we have type safety, end-to-end type safety. Big fan. then export the handle. And we explained in a previous video what this handle does. Okay, so that handle is basically what tells the breadcrumbs component what it is, which like it gives information to the to this piece of logic. Where is that? Yeah, here. Yeah, it tells the breadcrumbs component which type of breadcrumbs you're about to render, pretty much. Okay, so if I come back here like this, obviously now in the loader we need to return those additional information as well. So let me go in the loader now and do the same. I'm going to add the URL, change the canonical like this, remove that. Okay, excellent. We have the base URL. Another thing that we need to create is the breadcrumbs. Okay, so let's add the breadcrumbs very quickly like that. Excellent. And then obviously I need to import this and import that as well. Schema markup, need to import that as well. Okay, excellent. And obviously we need to return them. We need to return these informations. So let me return the breadcrumbs from here, and then the breadcrumb schema markup as well. Okay, so the breadcrumbs, once more, is consumed in the breadcrumbs component here, right? This is where we use that. This is basically, yeah, exactly here. You see, the breadcrumbs is consumed here, but the breadcrumb schema markup is consumed, as we saw in the previous example, here in the meta. So let's do the same for that. So let's go and change the meta from this hard-coded things here to the actual thing that it should be. So let's do that as well. Let me scroll up quickly, and it's very simple. All we have to do is to just come in this component and add this. Very, very simple. We're just going to replace everything that we have here, all this hard-coded thing, with this. Okay, that's going to do the trick now. So if we go to an individual collection, you can see that it has the schema markup that we want. Okay, so that's it. You see here the root, and then the collections, and then the individual collection, the men's collection. Okay, so now we need to do obviously the same for the products. So same thing, same process. Let me go there and copy again from my notes to do fast. So I'm going to copy here this. Excellent. TypeScript is going to complain. Let me import that. Excellent, very good. Now obviously, like in the previous cases, we are just not going to return from the loader. We need to return more than what we are returning here already. We need to return the breadcrumbs the breadcrumbs and the breadcrumb schema markup. So let me go and copy from my notes once more. We have here and again, like I said, one additional thing that we need to do is also return the collection. Okay, so let me do that here like this. Let me copy that and show you what I mean. So here we're just returning this defer. Okay, but this is no longer enough. We need to return the collection. Okay, we need to get the connect, and then I'm gonna change the way I'm creating the canonical. Okay, I create the URL, I get the base URL. Okay, and then I return the collection and the product, because before I was just returning the product. And if you remember the logic, our logic to create the breadcrumbs, go back there. For the case of a product, we need from the loader data both the collection and the product. So that's why I'm now adding collection to the data that are returned by the loader. And then let's import this utility scripts again, markup, import, and everything will be fine now. Very good. Obviously we are not using them yet. I'm not using them yet in the meta. Okay, so let's add our schema markup here. Obviously here we already have one, which is the schema markup for the product itself. But if we go back here to Google's Docs, we can see that we can add an array instead of just one. Okay, and that's what we're gonna do. So here we're gonna do like this. Okay, add this one, and we need another one. Okay, which is the one that we just created. So let's do data and breadcrumb schema markup. Excellent. And that's pretty much it. I think that will solve the issue for the men's product. Go here, you can see that we now have not only the product schema markup, the first that we had before, and then we have now the breadcrumb schema markup. So we have the root, the collections, the men's collections, and then the product. Okay, and that's pretty much it, folks. That's all I have for you in this video. I hope that makes sense. So just to summarize very quickly, we added these bits of logic, okay, with two functions in. One to create the breadcrumbs, one to create the breadcrumb schema from the breadcrumbs, and in our loaders we are now returning two extra things: the breadcrumbs, which is going to be used by the breadcrumbs component, okay, and the breadcrumb schema markup, which itself is used by the meta function here. And we do that for all of the pages that are important for SEO purposes for us. And that's pretty much it, folks. Again, my name is Junior from the LiftedCommerce team, a team of elite Shopify Plus developers. If you need any help of any kind regarding Shopify Hydrogen, custom apps, custom integrations, we are a safe pair of hands. So visit our website on liftedcommerce.com and feel free to send us an email. I look forward to seeing you in the next one, and ciao, bye bye.